Today we're seeing a lot of natural gas cooktops, and who better to teach us how to cook with natural gas than one of Atlanta's top chefs, Jay Swift, owner and chef of Fourth and Swift. Let's head on inside and see what he's got cooking.
Hi, I'm Jay Swift from Fourth and Swift in Atlanta. We're located on North Avenue in the old Fourth Right across from Ponce City Market. Today what we're going to do is we're going to learn how to do a really great steak dinner in just one pan. With the benefit of a nice hot gas stove and a good old-fashioned iron skillet, we're going to learn how to make a bavette steak with roasted wild mushrooms, zucchini, and fingerling potatoes, all in one pan. All right, so we got a nice smoking hot iron skillet here. They're great. It's one of my favorite cooking implements. I recommend you get one. And it works really good on a nice hot burner. We've got a steak here. This is called a bavette steak, but you can use a flank steak or a skirt steak or a flat iron steak for the same recipe. We've just seasoned it with a little bit of salt and pepper. Now we're putting it in our nice hot skillet. And we're going to char that real nice on the outside. We're going to season it on both sides with a little bit of kosher salt and fresh ground black pepper. You don't ever want to cook a steak in a pan that's not really hot, because you don't get that nice crusty flavor on the outside of the meat. We got this pan nice and hot. I smeared a little beef fat on there, but you can use butter or just a little bit of oil in the pan works too. Depending on the cut of steak, you might not need much fat at all. A bit more oil in there. That part out. Whenever you cook a steak like this, especially if it's not a filet mignon or something like that, after you take it out of the pan, you're going to want to let it sit for a few minutes. It's called reposing or resting. That way the muscle relaxes a little bit. It makes for a much more tender steak. Stand it up on its side and cook the sides a little bit. The way to tell how a steak is done, obviously time has everything to do with it and how long it's over the heat. It's a very high heat, but doesn't necessarily it's going to cook any faster on the inside. It just means it's going to char more on the outside. So that's why I'm kind of turning it and rolling it a little bit when you're cooking a steak in a pan to making sure it cooks evenly. The way you can tell when a steak is done, and it's different for different cuts of meat, but the firmness of it generally indicates the doneness of it. So if you touch a piece of meat, a steak, and it's real soft, and it kind of feels like the soft part of your thumb, between your thumb and your forefinger here, when it's relaxed, that usually indicates a pretty rare piece of meat. If you touch it and it feels really firm, like if you're flexing here and it's really firm, that generally indicates a medium well piece of meat. I told you about how you should let the meat rest because that'll make it more tender because the muscle will relax. Also, the residual heat still in the steak will continue to cook it, so there's some carryover. And we're going to let it sit for a few minutes, and the carryover is really important. So this still feels pretty rare on the inside, but I think by the time we slice it, it'll be closer to medium rare. So we got a couple of nice kinds of mushrooms here. These are available in some finer grocery stores and farmers markets sometimes, but you can use any kind of mushrooms you want. You can use shiitake mushrooms, you can use oyster mushrooms. This is one called hen of the woods. This is one called black trumpet. These happen to be wild forage mushrooms. We're also got some fingerling potatoes here that we boiled ahead of time, like for potato salad, and we let them cool down and cut them in half, and some baby zucchini. Real simple stuff. Okay, there's a little residual fat from the steak in the pan. I'm going to add a couple more drops and start browning off my potatoes in one side of the pan. Let those go for a little while. On the other side of the pan, I'm going to start sauteing my mushrooms. And I'll put the zucchini in there too. Of course, a little bit of salt and pepper. We're going to let that all kind of cook together. The mushrooms will cook rather quickly. They have a really nice earthy flavor. Kind of reminds you of the forest floor after a rain. Real nice kind of fresh earthiness to it. And these are great. These black trumpets, they cook really quickly. Go ahead and take those off because they're done. A few more drops of oil here. They soaked it all up. That's an inexpensive olive oil. It's not an extra virgin oil or anything like for cooking. You need that for finishing an oil. This is an oil to cook with, so that's mixed with a little bit of that beef fat I had from earlier. And there we go. Starting to see if our potatoes brown off nicely there. You can see, nice and top. Since we've rested it, It's a nice pink color all the way through, instead of being blood red in the middle and gray on the outside. So that's a nice medium rare steak. So just take your potatoes and their squash. These mushrooms got a little crispy, 2 different tastes, 2 different textures. Nice steak on top. Doesn't need a sauce, it's got plenty of flavor the way it is. And then we have a bavette steak, pan roasted, nice iron skillet with fingerling potatoes and baby squash and wild mushrooms.